Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. I hope you can all hear me okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ioannis Vassalos. I'm the Icon Photographic Materials Events Coordinator. And first of all, thank you all for joining us today from across the UK and from around the world. For those not familiar with the format, Lightning Talks is a chance to share brief insights and new discoveries and evolving ideas in conservation and encourage connections, networking, and knowledge sharing amongst our community. So today's Lightning Talks will consist of 4 sessions. Each will contain 3 5-minute presentations, and there will be time for questions and discussions at the end of every session. Each session will have a moderator. So Stephanie Jamieson, who is our communication officer, will be moderating session 1 and 4. Me, I'm going to be moderating session 3, and Paula Guayar, who is our events coordinator assistant, she's going to be moderating session 2 and session 2. Session 2, sorry, I'm confused. So at this point, we would like to inform you that one of the presentations in session 3 will not be happening as the speaker is feeling unwell and cannot attend. So in order to keep the schedule as is, we will be adding 5 minutes extra to the break between the session 2 and 3. So a few housekeeping things. So each speaker has like 5 minutes, and we'll keep a close eye on the schedule so that we can give full space to the Q&A at the end of each session. Please do keep audio off during the presentations, and we are more than welcome to keep your cameras on. You can write questions at the chat during the presentations, but we would encourage you basically to try to keep the questions when you are writing them towards the end of the presentation so that we avoid any distractions to the speakers. So the session will be recorded and made available on YouTube. And if you do not wish to be recorded, please keep your camera and audio off. At this point, I would also like to say that we're planning to have an annual group meeting later on this month, in the next coming months. I know AGMs are not currently mandatory, but we feel that we will benefit out of it. So we'll keep you updated when this will be happening. And finally, I also want to share the sad news of Martin Parr passing. I just got informed basically that Martin Parr, this amazing photographer, just passed away a few days ago, and I just wanted to share. And yes, his photographic legacy is really, really huge in this country and worldwide. So I just wanted to share this little news with you. So I think without any further ado, I'm going to pass on to Stephanie, who is going to be moderating, Stephanie Jamieson, who is going to be moderating session 1, and we can start.
Thanks, Ioannis. Can you hear me okay? Cool. Session 1 is focused on 3 presentations regarding special collections and photographic techniques. And we'll be opening with Sarah Allen. Sarah Allen has been a photo conservator for 20 years after graduating with an MA in conservation of historic objects from Lincoln. She completed a 3-year photographic materials conservation training program with the National Trust and English Heritage. She's co-director of Lux and Leaf, private practice working with many institutions, and for the past 5 years, she's also been invited to work for the National Portrait Project Conservator of Photographs. Her presentation will focus on a rare process in the collection of the National Portrait Gallery. This will then be followed by a presentation by Mathilde Renaud, Mathilde graduated with an MA in conservation in 2018 and worked towards a specialism in photograph conservation through continuous professional development and research, as well as working with photographic collections at several institutions, including Wimbledon Tennis Museum, National Gallery of Ireland, and Museum of London, before joining the V&A as Senior Conservator of Paper and Photographs in 2024. She will share with us her work on the recently acquired autochrome photographs by Helen Messenger-Murdoch, her conservation approach, and the specific treatments they required due to their complex structure. We'll then close the session with a presentation by committee member Paula Orgaio-Oroz, who is currently working at the V&A in a project focused on the Royal Photographic Society collection. She studied and obtained her master's and advanced professional program in photography conservation from the University of Amsterdam, and has worked in institutions and collections from Spain to the Netherlands, Hong Kong, and the UK. She will share with us some of the most interesting objects found during the 5% survey of the Royal Photographic Society collection, which moved to the V&A in 2017. So now we'll start with Sarah's presentation on a rare process in the National Portrait Gallery collection.
Hello, my name's Sarah Allen and I'm Project Conservator of Photographic Materials at the National Portrait Gallery. I am going to be talking today about the analysis, treatment and display of a strange golden photograph at the NPG. From September 2024 to 25, Room 20 at the National Portrait Gallery held a temporary exhibition entitled The Factory of Femininity. This showcased the work of Edwardian female photographers Lally Charles and Rita Martin, who were wildly prolific and successful at their time, but who had largely since been forgotten by mainstream photographic history. In preparation for the exhibition, this beautiful and unusual photograph was found at the bottom of a box which had been donated by Rita Martin's niece, who is actually the sitter in this image, and it was brought to the Conservation Department for identification and preparation for exhibition. In this lightning talk, I'm going to discuss the detective work that we carried out in order to inform its treatment, display, and the curatorial interpretation of the work. So the photograph was, to be quite frank, a conundrum. I'd never seen anything quite like it in all my 20 years of photographic conservation. It was on an extremely soft and flexible metal base. When I took it out of its box, it was so floppy, it was almost like a wet flannel. It was quite terrifying. The emulsion was in perfect condition, with no chemical degradation, and it shone like gold. But what was it? Well, the first thing I did was the usual thing us conservators do and have a look at it. So I looked at it in different lighting conditions, under different magnifications, and so on. And I could clearly see three distinct layers. You can see this soft, yet thick silvery metal base, a much, much thinner gold layer, and what looked like a gelatin emulsion on top. Looking at it under raking light, I could see that it was probably a carbon print. So you can see here in the sitter's hair, the characteristic release that you get in the maximum density area of carbon prints. But I still didn't know what the base could be. It just happened while I was doing this visual analysis, we had a visit from numerous photograph conservators from the US. We had Nora Kennedy from the Met, Peter Mostardo from the Better Image, Leanne Daphner from MoMA, Hanneke Murato from New York Public Library. And we showed it to them in the hope that they would know exactly what it was, but they didn't. I carried out quite a lot of background reading, but I couldn't find any reference to a process like this. I contacted photo historians, including, for example, Jeff Batchin, who's the Professor of Photographic History at the University of Oxford. Nobody had come across anything like it. So there was only one thing for it. I needed to analyse the various layers of the photograph and work it out ourselves. Now, we're lucky enough at the NPG to have a range of analytical equipment, including a Hirox microscope, FTIR, and so on, but nothing that would be able to tell us what the various different metal layers were. We contacted the V&A, and they were so generous and agreed to carry out some XRF for us. My lovely colleague Georgia Atienza couriered the photo to the V&A, where Lucia Bergio, their lead conservation scientist, did the testing for us. and they could confidently say that it was a carbon gelatin tissue on a layer of copper alloy. So unfortunately it wasn't gold, hence the title of the talk, and that it was on a lead base. We were so grateful to Lucia, the V&A Conservation Department, and lead conservator Barbara Borghese for allowing us to use their expertise as well as their AHRC funded equipment. So now I knew what it was, I had to work out a display method. The curators were keen to put it on display with no visible mount, showing all the damaged areas so that people could really see that this is a very special and unusual object. We had a suitable vitrine case already installed in the room, and we commissioned an armature mount from our consultant mount maker, Colin Lindley. But this lead base was so soft, it needed some form of rigid support on the back before being placed on the armature. Now, a long time ago, I actually come from an objects background, so I had some ideas of how to work with metals, but it was so long ago that I decided to consult metals conservator Neil Bollen, and I came up with a kind of hybrid paper/objects mounting technique. I decided to strap the photo to a piece of 100% cotton unbuffered museum board, using heavyweight Japanese paper strips as I would with, say, a resin-coated print that was strap mounted. But instead of using the usual adhesives such as wheat starch paste, which would obviously not be very effective on lead, I used Paraloid Bead 72, having first tested its strength and reversibility in a discrete area. I cut the mount board to exactly the same shape and size as the photo, except for leaving around 3 millimeters extra on the lower edge to prevent any damage to the soft metal. Finally, all that was left to do was install the beautiful object. We added 2 tabs of Velcro at the top of the armature for some extra physical security. And here she is in all of her glory. I think the lighting is particularly lovely in this case. Not only is it low, below 50 lux, but it just sort of shows her off as a pool of molten gold. And here is a close-up of her. But if you think this is beautiful, wait until you see the bespoke Tyvek covered storage my wonderful colleague Miriam Kleingulting made for it. Oh yes, I know what you conservators like. Look at this. Isn't it looking lovely in preparation for going back into the store when it came off display last month? Thank you so much for listening. I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues at the MPG who worked on the project with me, including Miriam, but also Paper Conservation Manager Emmanuel Largeteau, curators Claire Freestone and Georgia Atienza, as well as the freelance curator George Mind, who curated this whole room. And if you've got anything like it in your collections, please let me know.
Hi everyone, giving a brief overview of some treatment I undertook on some autochromes here at the V&A. So we recently acquired 150 plates by Helen Messinger-Murdoch, and 36 of those plates needed urgent conservation treatment because they showed the issues that you can see on the slide right now. So there was a lot of delaminating image layer and also some broken glass, which was cover glass, but also image carrying glass that was broken. So the treatment that I undertook was to re-adhere the lifted image layer, which I'd not done on autochromes before. I'd obviously done it on glass plate negatives. And these are the 2 key pieces of literature, which I'm not going to go into too much detail on. But essentially the difference when adhering an image layer of an autochrome with compared to glass plate negatives is you're not introducing an adhesive, you're introducing a solvent that allows the varnish layer of the autochrome to swell and become tacky again and act as an adhesive essentially. So when you've got your autochrome in hand, you want to be working with it glass face up so you can see where you're working. Essentially, you can see that air gap between the glass and the image layer, and then you insert your solvent into the very, very innermost level of the layer of the delamination, something like this. And then what you'll find is that capillarity will make the image layer and the suction to the glass quite immediately. But unlike when you're working with introducing gelatin into a glass plate negative, it doesn't stick. The varnish still hasn't really swollen up and become tacky, so you're able to manipulate the emulsion. And in fact, you want to be manipulating it and pressing it down so that there's full contact while the varnish layer swells and also while it dries, when it kind of repositions itself into its final composition. And only once you've really certain that you've adhered that section that you've done, can you move on to the next, and then so on and so forth. So I just want to pass some lessons that I've learned during this process. First lesson is beware of your fume hood, because what I found was that too strong suction was actually hazardous to the object, in that the suction was pulling up the emulsion as I was working. And also, if it was evaporating too fast, it led to poorer adhesion. So I ended up completely ditching the fume hood and using a respirator instead when doing the treatment. Second tip is to work slowly. So you want to be applying a solvent into small areas and making sure that it has stuck before you move to the next area. And you're able to redo the same areas with the solvent if you find that there's air gaps. And then the final lesson learned is that because you're not introducing moisture while you're doing this treatment, the emulsion doesn't relax. It really stays into its distorted shape if it has distorted. So I've got an example here. So on the left is the before treatment, and then the two photos on the right are after treatment. And what you can see is where the emulsion was really creased and wrinkled because it had kind of, moved after it had separated from the glass. Those areas are really, really difficult to bring back into contact with the glass when you're doing the readhesion. And so it doesn't really affect the viewing of the autochrome through transmitted light, but you can still see those air gaps in normal light, which is slightly disappointing. And then the second issue was broken glass. So I repaired the broken glass that carried image layer with paraloid B72 in the same way that you would repair other broken glass photographs, but I dissolved the paraloid in xylene to make sure that it didn't disturb the dyes in the autochrome. And then a good thing about the autochrome is that the final product has a cover glass, which in this case scenario acts as a reinforcement to the repaired glass, which is quite nice. And then finally, just a little side thing. A lot of the autochromes have original black tape that we used to seal the plate together. And in this case scenario, the black tape had a white kind of chalky pencil inscription on it, which I was really concerned would rub off and be lost over time. So I separated it and gave it its own kind of little housing enclosure, which now lives with the object and has been given accession number. So that's it. That's kind of my whistle-stop tour of autochromes. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Paula Gallardo and I'm currently working at the V&A as a project conservator. Today I will be sharing with you a few snips of the most interesting objects I am working with. Currently, there is a 5-year project to catalogue and digitalize the Royal Photographic Society (RPS) collection to make it available for everyone. The RPS is the oldest photographic society in continuous existence, and it was founded in 1853. The collection was moved to the National Media Museum in 2002 and transferred in 2017 to the V&A. I started the project by doing a survey to understand the collection and its state. I look at the 5%, which just translates to 177 boxes, 10,800 objects, which gives you an idea of the magnitude of the collection. And while this is interesting, what I would like to share with you today in this 5-minute presentation is the joy of finding interesting stories and objects. Let's start with these 3 boxes. They were pulled for the survey due to their state and not meeting museum storage standards. These boxes are all related to Ronald Proctor, who was a fellow at the RPS. He focused on portraits. He even gave a lecture in 1942 regarding portraits at home. In the first box, there are paperwork, his past work, and important documents, as well as photographs of famous people at the time. One of these photographs has a copy in the National Portrait Gallery collection. Inside the second box, there are volumes of a publication, The Countryman, in which Proctor marked each page in which his photographs were used. At the bottom of the box, there are negatives related to these publications. The final box, well, the final box is a mystery. It's currently locked. Will it have negatives, positive prints, We'll find out once we have it open. But from this general look into 3 boxes connected by one photographer, I would like to go into the detail. There is nothing more in detail than these microscope slides. There are 12 in total. They were done by John Benjamin Dancer, who was based in Manchester in the 1850s. You can see the detail they hold in the bottom left corner, which can only be revealed once a microscope is used. On the top and middle, you can see that 2 of them have lost their protective circuit glass, and because of this loss, or as a direct result of it, the image has been damaged and lost. In the same box, there is a crystal cube, called as well swan cube or casket portrait. This technique was in the Photographic News Journal in 1865 and was presented 2 years later in Paris in the International Exhibition. And while it didn't win any awards, it had an honorable mention. This portrait follows the principle of the stereoscope and is made by arranging 2 photographs taken at the same time with a slight different distance from the subject. These photographs will have been transferred to the side of the crystal cube or to a talc sheet that was just put against the cube. One photograph will be in the base, as you can see from the image on the right side, which is the crystal cube from the back. You can faintly see the outline and color application. And the other will be on the right edge of the cube. They will need to be aligned to create an illusion of depth. In the picture of the middle, you can see the angle in which half of each photograph is visible, creating a distortion in the reading. To close this presentation of the wonderful things found during the survey, I would like to share with you these little animations from 2 of the 10 glass plate discs found in one box. With a little bit less than 31 centimeters in diameter, these glass pieces are considered early cinema. These objects are chromatographs, and they probably hold less than 1 minute of video and in the more than 100 images present in the disc. They will have been projected and spun to create the illusion of movement and continuity. Sadly, 7 of the 10 plates are broken and will need treatment in the future to allow for a safely digitalization and handling. I would like to finish by thanking you for your time and attention, and I hope you have enjoyed the little peek into the collection and the wonderful things that I found.
Can you hear me okay, everyone? Yes, sorry. We're having some technical problems, of course. Just like Stephanie probably has some connections problems or either with her headphones. So I can maybe start taking any questions if there are any questions for any of the speakers of the 3 presentations. And feel free to write on the chat, or if you want to also unmute and ask the questions live. Just both will work. If there are no questions, I can start one with about the presentation of Sarah Ale. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was really, really interesting to hear about this amazing and very rare process. So first of all, I would like to ask you, you mentioned that you used paraloid B72. Do you know, so what was the percentage that you used, and how did you end up actually deciding that particular percentage? Did you have to do any tests before that?
No, it was very simple. I just used the preparatory B72 that you can just get in a tube. Nice and easy. Can you hear me?
Yes. So there was no
No,
kind of particular
actually,
percentage.
here I didn't. Yeah, no, I just
Okay.
used. No, it's nice and strong. I don't know what the percentage is,
Okay.
but you know the one I mean. It's just you buy pre-prepared.
I think I can hardly, you're breaking up a bit, but it's okay. I think I got the reply. Another question I wanted to ask you is, so as a tip for other conservators, curators, and photo historians who might be faced with like an unknown process or unfamiliar material, what is your go-to source for finding historical information or literature on photographic processes?
That is such a good question. I use Louis Nadeau's Cyclopedia. Do you know Louis Nadeau's publication? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes. Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. So it used to be really hard to find, but it's now online. So I just think that's where I go to straight away, because if it has the way it's organized is just so useful, because it'll have a process and then it'll have the list of related processes. So then you can go to that. Because I was looking at things like heliographs. Was it a heliograph? Anything to do with gold? Because when I saw it, I assumed it was gold because there was no degradation, nothing that would have told me that it had a copper alloy. So there was no copper corrosion products or anything like that. But I think that's because of the gelatin layer that was on top of it. So yeah, I was looking at all sorts of different processes. So yeah, Louis Nadeau, go there first. And then looking at historic sources as well. So there's various different cyclopedias that were kind of from the more Victorian, and this was Edwardian or late Edwardian. So they were useful, but it turned out that none of them were that useful because it didn't exist in any sort of literature that I could find, at least.
That's great, actually, to know. And about, I mean, I know Louis Nadeau encyclopedia, but I didn't know it was online. So that's a great source, actually, to share.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I think we have a few other questions. So Catherine Whitman, a question about Mathilde. Mathilde, can you hear us?
Yep.
Catherine asks, what method did you use to mend the broken plates?
Yeah, so I've got it here actually. I've got like a kind of a window mount that I wedge the plate in with the image layer face down. So I'm working on the glass side, and it wedges into this kind of corner here. And I'm working near vertically with the object here, and I tape the missing piece, well, the broken pieces together on the glass side with filmoplast bits, just to make sure that everything is nice and stable in the right position. And then I seep the adhesive over the crack and through the crack over several kind of layers, and then you peel back the residue after it's dried, after it's cured. I hope that is enough detail.
That's great, actually. That's great. It's kind of like you basically develop the method, sort of like standard method.
Well, I think you developed that method, Yanis.
Me? Oh, because of the glass plate negative.
It's essentially the same thing.
Well, but I mean, it's great because I mean, you have to kind of maybe even try to write more publicly about it, because it's it's great. It's great to see, and we have a few other questions. So Radoslaw Brozowski, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. A quick question for Sarah. Could you elaborate on the composition of the copper alloy? Was there any additional layer separating it from the carbon transfer layer? Copper alloy usually darken in contact with water in the carbon layer.
Oh, that's really interesting. I can't off the top of my... Can you hear me okay? I have all of the spectra from the analysis, but I don't know off the top of my head, sorry. But I can send it to you if you're interested. But that is really interesting because it was literally just straight on top of it. There was nothing else in between it. Yeah, it makes it even more of a mystery and even more amazing an object. If you want to get in touch, you can just drop me your email and I can send you all of the spectra for you.
Thanks. I will try that.
Thank you.
Have some more questions about Mathilde. Mathilde, what did you use to readhering the lifted emulsion? I think you did say sorry, you can
Yeah,
actually
no, that's
reply on
fine. So the research that Bertrand Lavedrine and Clara Veltalston did essentially kind of singles out two solvents that can be used to swell the varnish and but that don't disturb the dyes in the autochrome, and that's toluene and xylene. So they're both kind of nasty. I ended up using xylene because I don't know, I just had it on hand, but they both do the same thing. So it's xylene only.
Just to add on that I have tried before with toluene, and I think I find sometimes that it depends on the aging of the varnish. Like, so I would have a few plates that like back like in 2014, 15. So I found that it was actually worked in some and in some didn't work. I suppose like the aging of the varnish plays a role in terms of how they can reactivate enough to adhere back to the plate. And maybe it's also another factor is the aging of the glass itself.
Yeah, I found similar issues where and also just depending on how much varnish has been also scratched off or lost, because obviously of mechanical damage, you end up with differences like that. Definitely.
Exactly. I wonder, like, if you considered any like introduction of moisture, even like very slight, in order to kind of compensate for the gelatin. It's just like whether it crossed your mind.
It did, but honestly, I was too scared, so I didn't do it.
Understandably. We have a few more questions. Do we have any more questions on the chat? Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. That's great. You shared the link about the encyclopedia. That's a great source. Something else that I would like to ask you, Paula. Considering the size of the collection and the fact of the RPS collection, which is like, hugely of huge historical significance, and the wealth and the variety of photographic processes that it has, what did you find most challenging while working on this project? Because I suppose it has like really several aspects that you have to coordinate. It's not like only the excitement of finding like amazing, like hidden kind of like processes.
I think the more difficult thing has been like where to start, because there is so much to do. There is so much material. And while the results of the survey, we have estimated that most of it is in good condition, for digitalization, because it will be something different if we wanted to exhibit everything. But right now we're looking for everything is stable, everything can be photographed. So the more difficult part is just where to start, because it's such a big collection that is a bit hunting to see like, I will start with the glass. Oh no, actually, there is so many prints. I will start with the prints. But luckily for me, I'm working with a big team. So we have catalogers, we have a group of volunteers. So actually, I have been involved in teaching them how to handle objects as well. So it has not been all just looking at the collection. It has been a lot of collaborating and working with the different people involved in the project. And their needs have dictated a little bit where I have started. I hope that answered your question.
That's great. And it's great that you're working also with volunteers, because I wanted to ask you about the aspect about the collaboration. So, and whether you, I suppose you also have to cooperate with different specialists, catalogers, and like, photo historians. But can I ask, like, how did you end up selecting your volunteers? Did you have to go through a selection process, or is like the museum involved with that in terms of like finding out more about engagement? Because it's a great project to engage even more people and photography enthusiasts as well.
Yes, so for the volunteers, we actually did localize call, if we can say it that way. We reach out to universities and to the RPS. So we have two retired RPS members, which they're great because they know so much, and they're so happy to collaborate. And I'm currently working. Maybe I will have someone to help me with rehousing. Fingers crossed. I'm waiting to hear from the BNA if we can do it. But we want to involve as many people as we can. And for me, it's a bit of giving back the chances that I got when I was studying. So I really want to give someone else the chance to learn from this collection and to get their feet into the conservation wall.
Thanks for that. It's an amazing project anyway. We have a few more questions. I think this probably goes to Mathilde from Carla Salem. Have you considered experimenting with new innovations in green solvents that might be used in lieu of toluene and xylane, particularly because of the trouble that the fume hood causes?
Yeah, definitely. But I just do not have the time or the resources to look into it properly, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely that was a conversation that I had with some of my colleagues as well. And also I tried a variation of how to apply the solvents. I tried different kind of like solvent chambers, like vapor chambers. But in the end, I ended up just going back to basics because I couldn't really develop any other method myself with the resources that I have here.
And I can understand, like, this type of experiments and tests, they require time, which sometimes is difficult to find working in a big institution. And maybe we have time for a final question for Paula from Stefani. Did you find much literature on the crystal tube photographic process?
So there is one article from, I think it's last year, and that's it. So there is not much, and I will be very honest with you. I'm able to tell you what is the name because it was written in the packing. Otherwise, I would have been very lost. So I was very lucky in that sense that the RPS they have been quite good at writing what everything is. So I was very lucky because otherwise I would have been scratching my head and maybe I would have been like Sarah asking a lot of people. And I feel like not everyone knows about it, but there is one article. And then I have been looking at the journals from the RPS because there is some publications from the inventor. So that has been my main source of information.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me properly? Can you hear me well? Yes, lovely. We are back with session 2, and this session focuses on community. There is 3 short presentations showcasing examples of projects relying on collaboration and the needs to establish foundations to operate and achieve goals in short and long-term timeframes. We're opening the session with Ana Carreres, who is a conservator who graduated from the Polytechnic University of Valencia, Spain. Her specialization was further developed with a professional stay in the Netherlands, where she focused on photographic materials conservation and restoration. Currently, Ana is a freelance professional based in Valencia, offering specialized preservation services. Anna's presentation will focus on the measures taken to prevent dissociation during the recovery of photographic albums from the affected families in the 2024 floods in Valencia. She contributed her expertise to Salven Les Fotos project, acting as a conservator responsible for emergency response and the safeguarding of photographic materials. This project, which allowed the conservation field to give back to the local community, involved many complex challenges not contemplated in the literature. This will be followed by a presentation by Julie. Julie is a photographer and photographic conservator whose academic background spans photography, curating, and conservation. After completing her master's in conservation at Commonwealth College of Arts, she established the first photographic conservation studio and initiative in China in 2019. She is currently pursuing her PhD at the University of Westminster, focusing on contemporary Chinese photography. She is the director of the Chinese Institute of Photographic Conservation, Hong Kong, a non-profit organization dedicated to advancing the conservation of photographic materials and equipment through public education and professional awareness. Her work aims to bridge the significant gaps in knowledge and practice of photographic conservation between China and the wider international community. In her presentation, Yulin will tell us more about this labor to take care of photographic materials in the region. And to close the session, David Tick will share with us the pilot research for the Research Infrastructure for Conservation and Heritage Science Initiative, which aims to foster collaboration and conservation science. David has a PhD in chemistry with focus on archaeological iron. He worked on inorganic material and preventive conservation at the British Museum for 13 years. And in 2003, David joined English Heritage as a senior conservation scientist, specializing in preventive conservation. He is responsible for almost all materials. In his presentations, the last one of the session, he will tell us about the Riches project and the analysis of a large portion of cinema film from the National Motor Museum, which is in need of identification. So if we can have the first speaker, Anna.
Thank you for having me in these lightning talks. I will be presenting a brief resume of what I was doing last year. In this project, the title is Documentation as a Shield Against Dissociation, Emergency Interventions of Personal Heritage. As some of you may know, last year in Valencia, we had massive floods that affected the southeast area of the city, not the main city, but many localizations. And these images are taken by me. I was there helping people to recover their personal heritage and whatever could be saved. There were a lot of people affected by it, and we had 224 deaths, sadly. We, as conservators, asked ourselves what we could do in order to help these people to recover from the pain that they were experiencing. And lots of institutions gathered together, and some of them are museums, some of them were universities. And we decided to put this project out for them, and it's called Salvem Fotos. Many conservators around the world help us. Many other professionals from other fields also help us with this. So we are a lot of people working on this project. In my particular case, I was linked or working with the Universitat Politécnica de Valencia, and we managed to do like a emergency conservation protocol in a lab that we quickly arranged there at the university. So we had to do the protocol like really quickly because, of course, theory tells you one thing and then the reality is a whole other thing. We were running against time, space, and materials, resources, funds, all of that. And we had to, of course, try to manage to do the reception and the pickup of the photographs that were damaged. So it was not an easy access to the location, so we were doing it by ourselves. In all of this drama and like chaos, we had to ask for legal considerations and consents. So we were helped by a lawyer that was really nice, and she helped us through the whole process and told us how important it was to not to respect the victims' data and to not share that with anyone else and be mindful of that. So we end up having to redo a condition report that could serve for both condition report and also as a kind of a contract for the people to ask for their belongings once we finish with the project. Through the whole project, we had their information, like just basic information, names, emails, phone numbers, and we also have a little brief description of what they had give us or lend us in order to restore it. And they had a copy themselves to always make sure that they can contact us and also be sure of what they had lent us. And we also discovered that it was really important to take photos along the process, but unfortunately, we always were not able to do that. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for having me in this brief talk and for your attention.
Thank you so much, Anna. If we can have now Julie.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you so much.
So, hello everyone. My name is Yue, and it is an honor to share my work today. So, my talk reflects on how photographic conservation in China has had to grow almost from nothing and how that process has involved structural gaps, difficult setbacks, and ultimately a new beginning. So, after graduating from UL with a degree in documentary photography, I realized during the process of preparing my own exhibition that I actually didn't know how to curate my work properly. This led me to studying curating, and it was during this period that I became fully aware of how easily photographic prints can be damaged. So in 2016, I attended a photographic conservation workshop in London with strong encouragement to build a solid technical foundation. I entered the MA conservation course at Campbell in 2017. So during my training, I worked with photographic material at the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Museum, and both my dissertation and final project focused on a photographic album. After graduating in 2019, I returned to China and established the first photographic conservation studio in Beijing. I conducted condition surveys in private archives, artist studios, and institutions such as the Beijing Archive Center. Many collections were in poor or even alarming condition, which confirmed the urgency of this work. Meanwhile, I began writing articles on photographic conservation and collection care and offered a series of public nonprofit lectures. I also continued expanding my skills. In 2019, I visited several institutions worldwide, including the George Eastman Museum, where I studied historical processes with Mark Osterman and Franz Scully Osterman to further strengthen my technical foundation. So my work soon attracted the attention of the China Academy of Art. I was invited by the director of the Social History of Chinese Photography Department to help establish the first undergraduate program in photographic conservation, with dedicated studio space provided. Believing that this initiative could meaningfully reshape this field, I closed my Beijing studio and shipped all my equipment to the institution. And then the COVID stopped. I remained in London taking online conservation courses and preparing teaching materials while applying for a PhD, which is required for teaching in Chinese university. So when travel reopened in 2023, I finally revisited the institution and discovered that many of the materials that I had shipped were missing. and that the conservation studio originally planned for me had been converted into temporary staff accommodation. So furthermore, the program had been cancelled and replaced with a suggestion to run short-term profit-driven workshops. So this was extremely discouraging. I retrieved what remained of my materials and returned to my hometown to consider what to do next. Although I briefly considered leaving the field, many people in China continued contacting me with questions about conservation. So their messages reminded me that the need remained and that even small progress matters. So in later 2024, I traveled to the US and acquired over 20 boxes of research materials from Mike Osterman and other sources. With these materials, I rebuilt my working collection and decided to reestablish the center on firmer ground. So I have formally registered the China Institute for Photographic Conservation in Hong Kong. I mean, although there are many reasons behind this decision that cannot be publicly discussed, the outcome is that it allows the center to maintain academic independence. So Hong Kong offers a neutral and internationally connected environment while still enabling the institute to operate effectively within China mainland. So with the center now reestablished, so my aim is to build a foundation that can meaningfully support photographic conservation in China. My long-term goal is to establish a small model photographic conservation museum that demonstrates proper storage, display, and treatment practices and service as a venue for public education programs. I also hope to organize future forums dedicated to photographic conservation. So all of these initiatives are intended to be nonprofit. So however, the challenge remains substantial. There are very few trained photographic conservators in China, and there's a notable lack of Chinese language publications or translations. And most importantly, there are almost no translators familiar with the field of photographic conservation. So my own abilities are limited as well. So building an entirely new discipline cannot be achieved by one person or by one institution alone. So therefore, I warmly invited people here today to share advice, expertise, or opportunities for collaboration. So workshops, research exchanges, mentorship, or joint projects would all help shape a more connected and globally engaged ecosystem for photographic conservation. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Julie. If we can have David share now his presentation.
Hopefully you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
No. Okay, perfect. And following on from you, Lee, Richards essentially is establishing a heritage science community, if you like, for the UK. So we were very lucky to be awarded facilities funding from the Richards Scheme Research Infrastructure for Conservation and Heritage Science recently. We have a joint facility with Historic England. We have partners with Cardiff University, Birkbeck, University of London, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. And we've also got a loose partnership with Cardiff and Hess, looking at the refitting of historic buildings. And my email's there just in case anybody is interested in contacting me about this. But the whole idea of Richards is it is open access to anybody with a publicly accessible collection in the UK. And I'll talk about how you can access at the end of the talk. But these partners, why are my slides not moving? Okay. There you go. So these partners means we have access to a whole range of equipment, and you'll be happy to know I'm not going to tell you what all of these acronyms mean. But the stuff on the left is fixed equipment that people can come to our sites to use. The stuff in the middle is portable equipment, and we have a mobile laboratory, and you can ask for us to come and do work on your sites. And the stuff on the right-hand side is equipment to do with sustainability, mainly about reducing energy in running museum type buildings. And I'm going to talk about 3 examples of areas of work that you may be interested. Within collections, modern synthetic polymers are posing serious risks for us. They can degrade very rapidly. These pictures were taken, quite famous pictures from the Tate, were taken about 2 weeks apart. And in the one on the left, it looked fine. A very short period of time afterwards, it pretty much collapsed. And this really rapid decay of some of the modern polymers is really problematic because most of our conservation approaches expect us to have some warning, a number of years of seeing encroaching decay, but this is suddenly very fast. And one way that we've developed to deal with this is to actually analyze all of our objects that have these polymers in them. And we've analysed over quite a few years, over 15,000 objects within English heritage collections that have the polymers present, done with a variety of techniques that you saw. And this is just a snapshot of those results for some of them. So 3 of the main sites that have these things, and we've been able to identify the ones that are stable or stable-ish, and then the ones that are unstable, those made of cellulose acetate or cellulose nitrate. And I'm sure you can see the obvious overlap with photographs there. And the 4 other known unstable materials: polyurethane, polyvinyl chloride, natural rubber, and synthetic rubber. And in February, Richards is testing out its Access Fund. And as part of that, we're taking some analytical equipment to the British Motor Museum. They have 5,000 cinefilms. They are either polyester or polyvinyl acetate, and they want to separate them, and the polyvinyl acetate ones will go to the BFI for cold storage. So for a week, we're taking along 2 portable FTIR spectrometers, 4 scientists to run those bits of equipment as quickly as we can, and there'll be 4 BMM staff and volunteers to get the collections and feed them into the spectrometers, because we'd like to be able to do a good portion of those 5,000 films. And we're trialing a new way of trying to get those spectra actually on Monday, just because this makes it much more quickly. Most of the work has been done with a technique called ATR, but you need to remove the film from the can to be able to do that. On Monday, we'll learn if we can do this without just taking the top off of the can without removing the film, which will speed up the whole process. The other work we've been doing that you may be interested in and will be available is looking at glass stability. And we've looked at a whole range of analytical techniques because as glass degrades, it becomes more environmentally sensitive, and you need to have tighter environments, particularly in terms of relative humidity, to preserve it. And the table is just some work looking at the different ways of doing that in a showcase and the energy used, and hence the carbon footprint for those different approaches. But all of the techniques are available within the facility, but one you may be particularly interested in is down in the middle here. And this is just swabbing the surface with very clean water to remove some ions that we can then analyze in the lab. Sustainability is the other thing, which I won't really go into with this slide, but it's what the facility is designed to help us with, particularly reducing energy. And I'll just finish by saying there are 17 facilities. Some of the others may be of great interest to you. The BFI has a Richards facility, and their kind of work areas are on the right. And then Access. There will be 2 calls a year. There's an expression of interest phase, which actually closes, I'm afraid, at midnight today. But you will be able to still put a full application in in March without putting an expression of interest in. And that application will be for work to take place in the following year. The details of how to apply are on the 2 websites that I've put on that final slide. And that's as much as I've got time for.
Thank you so much, David. We'll do now the questions. Do we have any questions? I can see any right now from the chat, but I can see that Sarah Allen was saying that they have 2,000 more reels. So the numbers have gone up.
7,000. Yeah.
Just a few more.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the problems with this kind of work is just the numbers involved. It's, and I would hope we can do 1,500, maybe even 2,000 with what we're throwing at it in a week. But, and other people have much larger collections. I do realize.
Well, for now, Suk is asking, Suk Chun, I'm hoping I said that right, Suk, I'm sorry. Would you tell more about the color research in the future? So any color research that you maybe do.
Okay, that is very much stuff the BFI is doing. You would need to talk to them. I'm just trying to remember what was on the website. It's to do with the decay of color within films and how you can integrate that. But that's their work, and they're the specialists in that.
Lovely, thank you. We have a question for Julie. It's from Marta Garcia Thelma, which is the chair of our group, but as well she's based in Hong Kong.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So our center actually based in Qingdao, mainland China, not Hong Kong, but we registered in Hong Kong. There are so many complex policy or things I couldn't explain, but but we are always very happy to connect and collaborate across regions. So we are now fund a house, a very big building, and try to change it into a museum in the future, maybe next 3 to 5 years. Because currently we are negotiating with some like interior designer now. So hopefully in next 3 to 5 years we will open this museum only focused on photographic conservation.
That's amazing. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys can see me. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that has joined this event, and especially to the amazing group, Ioannis, Stephanie, and Paula. You are amazing. Sorry I'm joining late or now in video. I'm based in Hong Kong. So it was really, really wonderful to actually see your presentation and to have a bit more of that income of photographic conservation within Asia. And I know that we have Esther as well presenting later from Singapore. So what I can say is that if at any point you are coming to Hong Kong, especially in Christmas, because Esther is coming here, we will be really happy to talk. For any other person that is attending the chat from any other regions, to please get in touch with Julie and with myself as well, because there is a lot that we can learn from Asia and a lot that we can contribute with. Yeah, all these talks are amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to ask Anna a question. So as a result of this work, of course, is extremely recent, and I think you're still ongoing with the recovery of the photographic albums. But have you seen any developments in the legal or ethical guidelines when it comes to disaster management for private heritage? Or can you see that this will be a change that will be implemented in the future?
Well, thank you, Paula, for your question. To be honest, it's quite recent, so I've still haven't seen any change, but I've been talking to other conservators here, based in Valencia too, and we think it's gonna happen in the future because it's an important matter that we as conservators don't think about it much because we focus on the treatments on the object, but we need to implement that, of course. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have a few questions in the chat. There is one for David, Sarah. Oh, no, not Sarah. Sorry, Sophie Antulov. I'm so sorry. I'm not saying that your surname right, but she's asking, will you be publishing, sharing the results of your ATR and FTIR experimental techniques for film analysis?
Yes, so everything we do in Richards has to go into the Heritage Data Service. So there will be a report appearing in there fairly soon afterwards. I think we've got to submit it within a month of the actual work taking place. And we'll, if it does work well, we will certainly try and publish it in a scientific paper as well. But the report will be there and it will be open access at some point fairly soon after the work has taken place.
Lovely, thank you. Sorry, I was mute. Do we have any more questions in the chat from the public? If not, I have a question for you, Lee. You're probably aware that training in photograph conservation is also a concern in the UK. We don't really have a program specialized. Do you think we could approach this issue in a similar way that you're approaching it in China?
To be honest, I don't know. At the very beginning, I really don't know how to explain or how to elaborate this field into Chinese audience. So I built a connection with different kind of pioneers. For example, Grant Rohner. Oh, I can't remember his name. The first guy who ran the conservation workshop in George Eastman Museum. Grant. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Yeah, so I just try to learn from them because normally, basically, I kind of eliminated people's Western way. For example, they were normally started with identification of different photographic process, or normally from the identification, and then from the very basic paper-based prints. Because I do have the MA conservation on paper, so the only thing I do have the capability to deal with is paper-based prints, and then I need to ask for help from various different departments. For example, metal, was even kind of velvet, or even kind of some like Chinese paper conservation help, because there are loads of photo albums. They are combined with Chinese special like xuan paper, like ink painting. They do have the seal and ink. So it's really kind of collaborate with different kind of conservation area, not only the photographic area as only. And also, because I do have the curating and photography background, I just realized nowadays, globally, photographers are prefer use cross medias while when they try to produce their prints. Not only prints, for example, they prefer to use different different materials and also illustrations as well. So which brings more challenge for photographic conservation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions? And Jacqueline Moore was kind enough to remind us it was Grant Romer, the person that you mentioned. Let me see. I don't think there's another question. Do you have a question? Thank you. So we have a question for David. How long is the project gonna be running? So the riches. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah. That's fine. It's yeah. So we have guaranteed funding for the next 5 years. So there'll be two. I should have said this in the thing. There'll be 2 calls per year for the next 5 years. Then there's an intention to extend for another 5 years, but it will be assessed at that point as to how big an impact it's had.
And could you expand a little bit more on your how you're taking sustainability in your work, how you're making it
Sure.
sustainable?
Okay, so we've done a lot of work internally in English Heritage, particularly around collection care and particularly around preventive conservation. And we've managed to drop the electricity use and the carbon footprint by about 40% across our estates. And for those that don't know us, we've got 115 sites that have collections on, and we're involved with that, and a lot more that don't. And that's been around, the details are in that slide, but a lot of it's been around determining exactly what conditions and objects need, not what's ideal, what is the real bound at which, outside of which, we start to get damage. It's been changing the way we don't have a lot of air conditioning, and there's been a lot of work done on that is well worth going for if you have that kind of thing. We don't have air conditioning, but we've done a lot of things like changing heating systems from comfort heating to humidistatic heating that uses about a third of the energy, really assessing whether we need conditioning systems, and a lot of work on microclimates like showcases, print frames, painting frames, getting those to really work.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And I think that brings an end to the Q&A. Maybe if there is anyone with a question that really wants to be asked, you can put it in the chat, but otherwise we will go on a break. And we will be back at 11:45 because if you were not here at the beginning, we sadly had a speaker that had to drop out. So we're going to have a 5-minute extra in the break. So we will be back at 11:45. We will put it in the chat. Thank you so much for all for your presentations to all the speakers. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all back and you had a nice restful break, had coffee, some cookies maybe, some fruits. We had some cookies here, we needed it. So we're back for session 3. So this session is about understanding the gradations. It will be open with a presentation by Esther N.G. Esther graduated from the University of Amsterdam with a master's in conservation and preservation of cultural heritage with a specialization in photographic materials. She is currently working at the Heritage of Conservation Center in Singapore. Esther will talk about using a microphotometer as a tool to assess light sensitivity of photographs at the National Museum of Singapore. And she will share with us studies of testing photographs using this tool and the goals of the project towards the establishment of guidelines, preservation, use, and operational feasibility. Just to add here, of course, as I mentioned earlier, that Alison will not be joining us in the end. And then the second talk, which we're going to close with, will dive into silver mirroring and its documentation. This will be given by Diane Knopf or Knopf. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly your name, Diane. So Diane is an image science PhD student at the Rochester Institute of Technology. She received a master's in conservation of fine arts from Northumbria University, and her undergraduate studies included bachelor degree in studio art, anthropology, and chemistry. Previously, Diane worked as a paper conservator in private practice and held positions in museums and archives in both the United States of America and the United Kingdom. She will share her research in the use of polarized imaging to document and understand the silver mirroring condition on silver gelatin prints. So with that, I can give the space to Esther. Esther, if you want to share your presentation. Thank you very much. We cannot see your screen anymore. Now we can though.
You can?
Yes, now we can. We can hear you okay.
You can hear me and you can see my slides, right?
Yes, both.
Ah, great. Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
No worries at all.
Hello, I'm Esther. Thanks for having me today. Today I would like to share with you an ongoing project in Singapore. This is the Heritage Conservation Centre where I work, and the project I'm going to be sharing on is for the National Museum of Singapore. Currently, this museum is having a major revamp of its permanent history galleries, and when the exhibitions open in October 2026, it will be for 10 years. Many photographs are selected for the exhibition. As we know, some photograph types can be light sensitive, and as light damage is irreversible, it is important to engage and discuss with the stakeholders at the outset of the exhibition with the aim to make decisions that will balance between display and preservation of collections. Usually, light sensitivity data of objects would be useful in such discussions, and microfading provides that data. At HCC, we are re-examining our display guidelines as well. The old one was formed in 2016, and we would like to move towards a risk-based, value-based, and targeted lifespan-based lighting policy based on the Getty's 2021 research. This is the microfade tester set up at HCC. Basically, microfading uses a high-intensity microspot of light to illuminate the object and record the change in color and reflectance spectra. A typical test run is 10 minutes. We usually do 3 tests per colorant to be sure of the results. The light fastness results are evaluated with reference to the ISO Blue Wool standards. Light sensitivity is categorized as high when the object is assessed to be Blue Wool 1 to 3, medium when it's 4 to 6, and low when it's 7 to 8. In the test results, the blue wool equivalent of the least light-fast colorant in the object will typically determine the light dose to be accorded to the object, and the recommendations for display made accordingly. Let me share the results of 2 photographs that I tested recently as examples. This is a 20th century hand-colored colotype postcard titled Tamil Boy Selling Cakes. The printing ink is black and the hand-applied colorants are red, pink, green, and brown. The MFT results show that the pink on the boy's turban has a light sensitivity of less than Blue Wool 1. That's very light sensitive. Okay. So according to the Getty's latest research publication, Microfading Tester Light Sensitivity Assessment and Role in Lighting Policy, published in 2021, the recommended light dose accorded to a Blue Wool 1 sensitivity object is 100,000 lux hours. In the new guidelines at HCC, the targeted lifespan of a permanent collection object is 250 years. The role of color is also assessed to be important. Therefore, the postcard is recommended to be displayed for 3 months per decade at 50 lux for 10 hours a day. This would be challenging to carry out and will need discussion with the museums. It is to come. Okay, second case. This is a tinted albumen photograph from 1897. The tint is pink in this case. The MFT results showed the pink dye in this tinted albumen to be Blue Wool 2.5 sensitivity. It is also a permanent collection object, and the color role we also perceive it to be important, and therefore the recommended display for this object will be 4 years per decade. See what the difference the Blue Wool sensitivity makes to the display period. So we are bringing the results to the table to discuss with the curators to find the balance between access and preservation. So we certainly need to talk about rotations, and where there are resource constraints, the question is, what would be an acceptable compromise? Mitigation measures such as the use of reproductions will be discussed. So this table shows the targeted lifespan according to the value accorded to the collection. There's also differentiation where color is assessed to be important or play an average or smaller role. So for instance, the objects that I mentioned just now belong to the permanent collection category, PC, which means the targeted lifespan is 250 years. And where the color is important, then you can see that the preservation target we set is one just noticeable difference every 30 years. Okay, so how long should we display this photograph? We are trying our best to answer this question. And we believe the way to move forward would be to have the risk-based, value-based, and targeted lifespan-based guidelines. It won't be easy, but we will start with discussing with the stakeholders. Thank you. And I want to thank my colleagues, wonderful colleagues here who set up the guidelines, and for many people who help me with the microfeeding. This is the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. This was very useful also your insight. Shall we move to Diane or Diana?
Diane.
Diane.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm sure everyone here knows the issues that come along with documentation of silver mirroring and the bluish sheen that makes it hard to document as you're condition checking the silver gelatin prints. And so my goal is to look at polarized imaging as a way to document silver mirroring. No, sorry. Okay. So on the left is an example of a photograph, it's a silver gelatin print with silver mirroring. And on the lower left, you can see the oblique specular illumination that shows the areas of silver mirroring. So what I am doing is I'm illuminating the photographs with linear polarized light and then imaging them with a linear polarizer filter on the camera that I rotate through certain degrees to then allow me to calculate Stokes parameters, which provide information about the polarization of the light that's reflected off the object. So those four degrees of which I'm rotating the filters through are 0, 45, 90, and 135. So the 0 degree image is similar to parallel polarization, where the linear filters on both the light and the camera are aligned, whereas the 90 is more like cross-polarized, where you're blocking out any of that linear reflection. Taking those four photographs then allow me to combine them into Stokes parameters, where I calculate 4 different parameters per pixel. There is a 5th parameter that calculates circular polarized light, which I'm not using. But on the top left is the total intensity image. The top right is the horizontal vertical polarization. The bottom left is the plus and minus 45 degree polarization. And then on the bottom right is the degree of linear polarization, which is calculated from the other 3 images. As you can see, the degree of linear polarization does appear to relate to the areas of silver mirroring on the image. So then I've created an overlay with a mask on the far right, showing the areas of the image that have a threshold of 0.2 degrees of linear polarization, which seem to align well with the areas that you could see in the oblique specular image of this photograph. So here we have 3 different examples to show that this does correlate across different amounts of silver mirroring present. So on the far left is an image with no silver mirroring, and you can see in the overlay on the bottom, again with a threshold of 0.2 degrees of linear polarization, that it's not showing any areas of silver mirroring. There are just minor lines on edges that are appearing. In the center, again, the threshold appears to align quite well with the areas of silver mirroring that are present. And then on the right is an image that has a very high degree of silver mirroring. And you can see that that is reflected in the overlaid image as well. So now the next steps is for me to find the right thresholding method, which allows me to correctly correlate the silver mirroring to what is seen by conservators, who would generally be documenting this. The hope is then to be able to take that information and be able to quantify the surface area of the silver mirroring on the photograph so that it can be reproduced over time, so you can document more about the progression of the silver mirroring as it goes. And that's essentially where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane. I mean, that's incredible. Both talks were really interesting, addressing very current and significant issues in photograph conservation. Do we have any questions already? Just to answer very quickly the question about Carla, yes, we will be able to access the recording of the session later on. Just show it on the chat. So we'll have one question for Diane from Stefan Jamison. Could you also use this method for looking at silver mirroring on glass plate necks and plastic-based negatives?
So that is definitely something that I have discussed with the Rochester Institute of Technology has the Image Permanence Institute, which studies the degradation of photographs. And I've discussed that with them, and I do think that that would be a good next step. I think the setup would need to be different, just due to the transparency, but there's no reason why it couldn't be attempted and seen how it goes.
So when this is like a question from me. So I understood that you basically take several images. Can I ask, how do you overlay these? Which do you use, like a Photoshop or a certain software?
Yeah, so I have written a Python code that aligns the images.
Okay, that's very interesting. Another question for you, Diane, from Shuk. Does it mean one can monitor silver mirroring even from the moment it is still not apparent? It's a very good question, Shuk.
That is my hope. So the thought is that there might come a point in the thresholding where, depending on the thresholding method, it might have to be treated sort of as they treat target detection in like radar, where you have two separate ideas on whether you're expecting the target or not, on how you threshold that. And so there is a route to where hopefully you'd be able to monitor it from nothing to, yes, it's present and how much is present.
That's gonna be super useful, actually. Another question. No, there is a question for Esther from Megan Smith. How did your organization? No, sorry. Your organization decide upon 250 years as a lifetime?
I can't really answer this question because my colleagues, Krista and Phyllis, they developed this. So, but I can convey the answer in later to you if you are interested. I also feel that they have guts to fix on the number.
And that's like a question from me, Esther, towards you. Who's operating the microphotometer? Do you have like, is it you? Have you received training, or do you have a dedicated person doing that in your institution?
Yes, currently I'm the one operating the micro feed tester at HEC, but we hope to have more users in the coming years. So Bruce Ford was the one who helped us to set up, and our
Yes.
model was based on the Paul Whitmore model, but we have changed the lamp to an Ocean Insights Genan lamp.
Oh, that's great. Also, I wanted to ask you, so you're creating a sort of guidelines, and I wonder if these guidelines essentially will feed into or inform like a wider lighting policy that you might like have in your institution. How do you do that if you're planning to do it?
So when Phyllis and I we discussed, this guideline will apply to paper and photograph collections. And for textile section, the head, Mickey, she also like work with Krista to set up something. And now the both teams are looking at the differences in the guidelines to see whether we can like dovetail and be consistent with it. So that is why this is a work in progress
Yeah,
project.
yeah. Do you think your findings and the guidelines essentially, do you consider make them accessible to like for other institution? Um, would other people be able to access it?
Currently it's a work in progress, but we do. I think Krista do encourage us to share it. So yeah, we will be looking at it as a team in future certainly. And if anybody is interested, please contact. Feel free to contact us.
That would be great. I mean, we are also, at Tate, we are also using the microphotometer. I think we have a very similar setup. I'm not the one involved in doing in operating it on photographs or other artworks on paper. But we have a dedicated conservator who's doing that in cooperation always with the conservation science team. But it would be great to basically exchange information on that. Because yeah, we are also like, we are kind of having it as core part for decision making. And yeah, I mean, I can totally understand when you were saying about um, the the risks. You kind of have to balance the risks and the demand, which is, it can be very tricky sometimes.
Yes.
So we have another question for you, Esther, from Marta. Any findings correlated by looking at prints with different gloss and or different coatings?
Not so far. And I'm actually very interested in Marta's opinion, whether she thinks that that would have an influence on the fading rate of photographs. So looking forward to meeting her in Hong Kong and to discuss further.
That would be great.
Thank
And
you. Can I
yes,
add something? Can I add? And this is actually something for everybody. And I'm going to be talking kind of like in family. I think that all of us here are family, and this is the space for us to learn and to really share the practices of our day-to-day, encounters with photography. So at MPLAB, we don't currently have a microphotometer yet, right? We did start working with macrophotometry. Of course, not with real works of art. It was a whole process of experimentation to understand if we could go to a bigger surface, and it was more with works of art on paper. We are going to be looking into getting a microphotometer. I do, however, find that literature and colleagues from different related fields are bringing to the surface differences of microphotometric responses and what we originally been told. So the last encounters that I had with people actually from the Netherlands, from Amersfoort, the Cultural Heritage Center of the Netherlands, were mentioning that while microphotometry does indeed tells you that something fades, the speed at which it fades is not really accurate. So it does show if something is going to change towards a blue hue, towards magenta, towards a yellow, but the amount of energy that we put through microphotometry doesn't 100% correlate to the amount of energy that we will put through a traditional display. So I do not have enough experience. What we are trying to build right now at M+ is a twofold approach. So that's going to be a really long-lasting practice. But we are trying to gather data with the LAB system, so with the X-Rite system before and after display, and through the middle of the display for the open display artworks, the ones that do not have glazing. And we would like to also start doing microphotometry as soon as we can, or to gather data from other institutions that share works with us. So if anybody has more experience and it's able to share it, please do so, because sometimes I'm afraid that we are making decisions based on the data that one instrument give us, but it might not be fully accurate. And again, I'm just thinking about the amount of energy that we are putting at once at full speed in an artwork versus a small amount of energy. That's saying that our skin, we can receive a little bit of light bit by bit, but if we go directly into the sun with no filters, we will get burned. So it's something that it's running into my mind. I'm not a scientist by any means, but if someone is, or if someone had former experience, please, yeah, speak up, because I would love to learn and to be able to develop our practice for it.
That's a great point, Marta. And I think basically, in my opinion, I think definitely we cannot depend just on a single scientific tool, and these decisions should be made like by correlating different data. I think essentially the microphotometer works as an added resource of data to help us like making decisions, because of course, like every photograph kind of is different. Even if it's like the same process, it has gone through a different life. So I suppose it won't give the same results like a very well processed, for example, photograph to a non very well processed, like even like from the silver gelatin print. So my point is that we should always use like more sources of data in order to form our decision, and this would be a microphotometer plus testing with colorimeter, or like densitometer before and after exhibitions, like information, for example, like how long was the display, what was the environment, if the artworks are framed or not. All these need to be kind of somehow embedded, and of course our traditional, let's say, knowledge about each process and each process sensitivities. So everything must be kind of like together. And yeah, like as you used like the word before, it's not a panacea. Like I love this word. I saw you used it at your PhD defense, and I loved it. So yeah, but as Esther says, it's a work in progress, and will be very interesting to hear more in the future, or even like collaborate and exchange knowledge and results.
Definitely.
There is another comment by Radzlow Rozowski. I had an opportunity to use MFT on silver images, most types, and the results generally indicate that while it works on dyes and pigments, if the image is pure, the readings are very misleading. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree absolutely, Radzlow, and like I have
Can
seen.
we just add
Sorry.
a sentence? We worked out that the issue is mostly connected with humidity, because MFT, while concentrating light on this very small spot, heats up the sample. The temperature Paul Whitmore gives is about 50 degrees, and that's enough to drive humidity out. And the fading of silver image seems to be very closely correlated to humidity. So if we humidified the sample during the test, the fading was very intensive. But if we just put it into the MFT and took the reading, the fading essentially ended after about 20 seconds.
That's an extremely useful point, Bradslaw. Thank you so much.
We didn't do it on historical originals because I'm involved in a project where we recreate most of 19th century silver technology, negatives, positives, toning, and so on. So we had models made for that purpose, and we could test them using a couple different methods. So essentially, the readings from MFT were pretty much misleading because we only got change in the first seconds, and then it seemed to be correlated with humidity.
I mean, this is really, really, really useful. Like as Marta says, like it would be great to read or listen more about that. Are you planning to like publish more about it? Because it's actually a very, very good point, very valid
Yes,
one.
I am. I've got 3 weeks to submit my PhD, which is partly on this, and then
Fingers crossed for you.
I'm going to try and publish an article specifically on the MFT, plus a couple other findings, especially as we were able to like test 30 different toners from the past and then processes starting with Talbot type, the original paper negatives, up to collodion emulsions on paper and glass.
That's great. I mean, we were really looking forward to that, and all the best of luck with your PhD. I think we're almost done. I wanted to just like ask a last question to Diane. This is an amazing tool that you are developing, Diane. And I was thinking if you are thinking of like, making some sort of accessible guidelines for other institutions or other conservators with a wide range of conservation studios that could potentially have it as a resource or equipment for, I don't know if Diane...
Yes. Yes, that is the hope. After it's all completed, the hope is to make the code that I write for the alignment and for the calculation of everything to be accessible and to come up with a protocol that provides the best setup for the documentation, such as the angle of the lighting and other different aspects.
Yeah, because there are many technical aspects that should be taken into consideration. But thank you so much for sharing that. That's super useful.
Thank you.
So I think with this, thank you both. And we can close for a short break, and we will be back in about 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Yeah, for the last session. Yes, just like a quick break. Thank you very much, everyone.
So yeah, welcome back, everyone, for our final session of today. We've got 3 presentations regarding collection care, focusing on the challenges of caring for clusters of materials. Our first presenter will be Adaya Adamopoulou. Adaya is a senior conservator of antiquities and works of art and owner of Athens Art Conservation Studio, established in 2012 in Athens, Greece. A graduate of the University of West Attica, she previously worked at the Benaki Museum, specialising in photographic materials, preventive conservation and exhibition preparation. Since 2012, she's worked as a freelance conservator for museums, cultural institutions and private collectors, conducting condition surveys, treatments and preservations consultancy. Her expertise includes paper-based objects, books, leather, photographs, paintings and wood. Adaya will present her work on Nikolaos Zographos' negative collection, which reveals a hidden chapter of early 20th century Greek photography. She will share her conservation approach and preventive measures. Our second speaker will then be Jade Pinkett. Jade has a master's degree in preventive conservation and is currently the conservation technician at the National Museum of the Royal Navy for the Portsmouth and Gosport sites. Her presentation will focus on a project that tackles issues that many conservators will be familiar with, the preservation of acetate negatives. Our last presentation will be given by Sean McKinnon. He has a Bachelor of Science in Archaeology from the University of Calgary and a postgraduate certificate in Cultural Heritage Conservation and Management from Sir Sandford Fleming College. Currently, he works as a conservation intern at the Provincial Archives of Alberta. Sean will present on the development and update of the storage solutions for panoramic photographs and the negatives in the Provincial Archives of Alberta. So we will start with Adaya's presentation.
Hello, and thank you for joining. Today, I will present the conservation of Nikolaos Zographos negatives, an extraordinary discovery that profoundly reshapes our understanding of early 20th century Greek photography. Zographos was a skilled yet historically under-recognized photographer, known mostly through finely crafted prints dispersed among collections. He studied photography in Paris and in 1905 returns to his birthplace in Smyrna, where he opens a photographic studio and captures military moments and everyday life. After the Asia Minor disaster, he arrives in Athens, continues as a professional photographer, distinguishing himself for his landscapes and his pictures of people in the countryside. Until recently, no original negatives were thought to survive. The discovery of approximately 1,000 negatives not only challenges that assumption, but reveals an artist deeply invested in the entire photographic process, from capture to meticulous retouching. In this talk, I will outline the discovery, the technical insights it offers, and our conservation approach. This project began with the unexpected identification of roughly 1,000 original negatives, an archive previously believed lost. These objects provide a rare opportunity to examine Zographos' working methods directly rather than through prints alone. The negatives span various formats and processes, offering a broader picture of his artistic activity. Their survival also illustrates the vulnerability of such archives, many of which have been lost, dispersed, or deteriorated beyond recovery. One of the most fascinating aspects of this archive is Zographos' meticulous retouching, visible across many negatives. Through close examination, we see evidence of graphite, ink, scraping, and other modifications, each revealing his careful control over tonal balance and detail. The negatives also show his mastery of different emulsions and printing intentions. This level of intervention is not merely technical, it demonstrates a refined artistic vision and a hands-on involvement that elevates his status among photographers of his time. The conservation work focused first on identifying the materials and forms of deterioration present. The archive includes cellulose nitrate, cellulose acetate, and glass plate negatives, each requiring different handling and stabilization strategies. We conducted material characterization using the float test, microscopy, notch codes, and also condition mapping to guide treatment decisions. Treatment included surface cleaning, local consolidation where necessary, and rehousing in appropriate enclosures. Given the long-term risks associated with nitrate and acetate film, preventive measures were essential. Archival storage materials, clear documentation, and digitization planning ensure sustained preservation beyond immediate conservation treatment. Beyond its technical challenges, the archive reshapes Zographos' position in Greek photographic history. These negatives provide the first direct evidence of his working methods and reveal the depth of his artistic and technical expertise. By preserving this material, we not only stabilize fragile artifacts, but restore a missing chapter of Greece's visual heritage. The project demonstrates how conservation can illuminate overlooked legacies and contribute to more complete historical narratives. Thank you very much for listening.
Hi, my name is Jade Pinkett, and I am the Conservation Technician at the National Museum of the Royal Navy for our Portsmouth and Gosport sites. As you can see, my role is very varied and is mostly focused on preventive conservation tasks. This includes IPM, managing the freezer, light levels, and cleaning. However, I do get to work on interventive treatments on objects as well. I have been in this role for over 2 years now, but I originally started as a placement student in 2021, which was when this project began. This is one of our negative stores at our Portsmouth site. It is where I carried out my condition audit during my placement in 2021. During this time, I was able to work in this store, but in 2024, I noticed that I could smell the vinegar from outside 2 different sets of doors, which was then I realised that over the last 3 to 4 years, the deterioration had worsened. This was when I decided that I wanted to revisit my project, and my manager at the time was actually my manager during my placement, so she was very supportive of this. During my placement, I found that most of the deteriorating negatives were found in the metal cabinets holding the Royal Marines collection, so I decided that I would start with the negative stored there. The metal cabinet is unsuitable to store cellulose acetate negatives, as it causes the buildup of acetic acid, and as vinegar syndrome is autocatalytic, it feeds off the off-gassing acetic acid, which then accelerates the rate of deterioration. The negatives are also stored in glassine enclosures, which are not suitable due to not only not protecting the negative from the outside environment, but also they do not protect the negative from itself when it is off-gassing. Here are some examples of the negatives that were found. The top left negative was first thought to be nitrate because of the notch code present, but it was later found to be polyester after being tested. The bottom middle negative shows silver mirroring, which has been found to affect a large number of the negatives in the collection. The other photos are examples of cellulose acetate negatives that were found to be deteriorating. As you can see, there are warping and channeling, which are common signs of vinegar syndrome. Our current priority is getting the negatives out of the metal cabinet and separating them into boxes. As we are doing this, we are having separate boxes for the polyester negatives, for the cellulose acetates that are in good condition, and then boxes for the degrading acetates. As you can see, we are making good progress, and hopefully we will be finished at the end of the year. We can then prioritise cataloguing, condition auditing, and freezer storage of the degrading negatives until a decision can be made on whether to digitise or a plan is made for permanent storage. We can then move on to the acetates that are in good condition, because it will be likely that these will start deteriorating soon. Before this project, there was no knowledge of the conservation of photographic materials within the conservation team. So this project has not only been important for expanding my knowledge on photographic materials, but also has allowed me to share what I have learnt with the rest of the conservation team and with the collection team as well. I am still learning more about photographic negatives, and I hope to expand this project to not only include all the negatives stored at our Portsmouth site, but also our other sites, like the Fleet Air Arm Museum. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or feel free to email me with any questions or advice. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sean McKinnon and I'm a Young Canada Works conservation intern here at the Provincial Archives of Alberta in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. My presentation is titled Hanging Out at the PAA, Updating Storage for Panoramic Photographic Materials. Oversized panoramic photographs and negatives pose interesting storage challenges as they often don't fit traditional shelf sizes, as seen in the example photo on the left. This causes damage to both the housing and materials within, as well as making the materials hard to access. This led to a previous intern project in which coroplast slings were created for the oversized photographic materials. The sling style was chosen as it was the best suited to the available storage space in our oversized materials vault. However, a combination of general aging and overfilling caused the slings to warp, and previous design decisions reduced ease of access. I was asked to design and fabricate new slings as a part of a larger vault reorganization project. The goals were to create new slings out of a more flexible material while retaining structural stability, with closures that were easier to use and an associated instructional document for when more need to be made. I began the project by doing condition checks on all the materials, added additional support to weaken photographs and negatives, altered or created new 4-flat folders, and divided the folders into smaller groupings for more reasonably filled slings. While creating new slings, I tested various materials and fabrication techniques, focusing on ways to reuse the previous sling materials, cost and availability of additional materials, as well as skill level and time required to create a new sling. Tyvek was deemed too expensive for large-scale use, and the static charges created during handling made the fabrication process more difficult, as well as attracted dust and debris material. Unbleached cotton was cheap, easy to find, and easiest to use throughout the fabrication process. Different stitches were tested. I found the zigzag stitch harder to use, and it used more thread, whereas a straight stitch was easy while providing secure enough attachment. Different closure methods were tested, including buttonholes in both a horizontal and vertical orientation, though it was found the fabric pulled too much with only stitched edges for support, so grommets were used instead. Once prototypes were created and proven easy to use by other archives staff, I was able to refine and standardize measurements. The final design features a coroplast insert made from the previous slings surrounded by a new cotton shell. For joints that deal with higher levels of stress due to use, a secondary reinforcing line of stitching was added. Both insert and shell are hung onto the storage furniture using appropriately spaced S-hooks, with the front flap of the cotton shell attached to the same S-hooks when in the closed position. Both the back and front edges of the cotton are double layered for added structure. A photo sleeve was hand-stitched to the front of each sling, allowing for an easily accessible accession list should it need to be altered in the future. Spare slings were created as well as an instructional guide should more oversized panoramic materials be added to the archive's holdings. Cotton is more flexible than coroplast and therefore should not warp as readily, especially in combination with the reduced load per sling and spare slings to avoid overcrowding from new accessions. The new hanging and closure design utilizes fewer S-hooks, making it easy to access and a more efficient use of materials. In total, I created 12 slings to rehouse 394 items, which were originally held in 9 slings, and created 3 additional slings for future acquisitions. I moved panoramic photos stuck to glazing materials to the upper portions of these rows to keep like materials all together. There's me looking very proud in front of the products of all my hard work. This project allowed me to learn new skills such as machine sewing, as I had previously only learned basic hand sewing. I was also able to build upon my custom enclosure design and fabrication skills, which required problem solving and thinking of ways to efficiently use available space and resources. I was also able to collaborate with staff across the PAA by touring the retrieval aid, technicians, and archivists through the space and asking for feedback. As of now, the slings are still hanging and working as intended, and I hope they will remain that way for many years to come. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Those are three great presentations to finish off today with. So if anybody's got any questions for those last three talks, please put them in the chat. I mean, I will kick it off with a question for Daya, if the Daya's on the call still. So how do you think this work could help inform others who might be working with similar artists' archives? Do you have any advice for people who might be starting off with a similar kind of project?
Hello, hi Stephanie. The name is Adia. Don't
Oh,
it's no
sorry.
problem.
Adia.
It's difficult. Thank you for your question. You asked about sorry if how can what can I suggest to new conservators about dealing with such archives?
Yeah,
What was it?
if maybe if anyone has sort of a similar project where they've got a big artist archive like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's the most important thing before I began. It was the evaluation of the archive. I mean, if you noticed, only prints were found until now. Discovering negatives was very, very important for the history of Greek photography. Because in a way it gives added value to the archive and to the artist as well. Also to see all the retouching methods he used, how careful he was. Uh, Keeping in mind that he was a refugee, he came here when he was in Asia Minor in Smyrna. People were rich there; they were living a life at ease. He was able to go to study to Paris, but then the war came in 1922, and he was a refugee. But he still persisted. He remained a photographer in Athens when he came, and he was very good. He was also friends with Fred Boissonnat. He went to travels with him. So the evaluation of the archive is very important to see the value of the archive of the material. I don't mean that if you have another theme or another artist, it's not important, but it's very it make a difference. It made a difference this thing, and then one should begin with a condition survey, the characterization, the material characterization, and then find according with the given the available financial resource that you have, what's the best solution you can do? Preventive conservation, digitization, full conservation, and the only thing that's everything went well, but the only thing that is now remaining, the digitization is programmed to be done in next year. The only thing that's remaining is where the archive will be stored, because it's a private archive. And in Greece, if you want to communicate with a museum or a storage that has storage facilities, you are obliged to give it away, to donate the archive. So at your house, it's very difficult to have storage conditions. So that's a problem that has to be solved. But yes, I would suggest to start with evaluating the importance of each material.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Nadia, thanks for sharing this. It's
Hi,
very
Yanis.
interesting. Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to have you here as well. So did you say that you, sorry, maybe I didn't catch it. Did you say that it's actually a private collection? So,
Yes, 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 yes. It
so
belongs to the great-grandson of the photographer.
amazing. So at the moment, it's basically in a house, I
Yes,
assume.
yes.
And
That's why what Stephanie asked me is first it all connects with your question and Stephanie's question. It's an important archive. We were lucky to have the financial
funding.
the financial way to conserve it, to make the conservation, and we will make the digitization soon. But then the storage, which is the last and most important for us conservators part, uh, it's not yet it's not yet clear what we can do about it.
Do you think like do you think the option of donating to a museum, like either private or public, like for example, Benacchio, another one, would it be an option, do you think?
Yes, it would be an option, but there are legal issues about it because when you donate an archive, you don't have the copyrights.
Yes.
You cannot have a word if you want to make an exhibition, make a book. And currently, the owner is very interesting in disseminating the archive, to make it known with exhibition, but and has an opinion about it. It's not something that it's not. He cares for it. It's not something that he can give away as such to a museum or. But maybe in the future, maybe it will end up in a storage facility of a museum. We hope.
It's interesting seeing all these legal issues as well. It just shows us how photography has like so many levels and aspects. It's not just like conserving the actual material, and it brings me like back to Anna's talk was it in the second session? Yeah, it's just like food for thought essentially. But thank you very much. Sorry, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Yanis, for that. I've got a question in the chat for Sean. Would you mind repeating what sort of photographic materials are stored in the hanging cotton devices, just DOP on paper supports? Was there any glass?
Yeah, so it's primarily developing outprints on a paper base or negatives on a polyester base. There were a few kind of weird like positives on a polyester base that were developed sometime in the 70s or 80s. So those stayed in there as well. But yeah, nothing that's framed with glass or attached to glass. Anything that was still stuck to the glazing material, we just hung directly onto the storage furniture, just kind of above all of the slings. Yeah, so it's kind of just the prints or nice polyester base negatives in there.
That kind of leads me on to another question, actually, I was going to ask you, which was just whether that type of hanging method had been adapted for any other kinds of objects in the stores, or whether it was just focusing on those photographic panoramas.
Currently, it hasn't really been adapted to anything else. Another part of the project that I was working on was looking at seeing if some sling type solution would work for really oversized maps as well that we have to keep rolled because we just don't have anywhere to store them if we fully unroll them. So I did do some kind of prototypes for that as well that would then utilize that same kind of hanging furniture. But unfortunately, just with time constraints, I wasn't really able to go too far past that. Kind of once you start opening those maps up, any interventive treatment that needs to be done, you kind of want to do it while you're already opening it up. So prototypes have been developed for the future, but that's kind of as far as it's gone.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that'd be really useful to hear for lots of people, because finding space is just a never-ending issue. So any kind of innovative way to maximize space is really useful. I've got a question for Jade. So yeah, dealing with cellulose acetate is a very common stress for so many people working with photographic archives. What would be your most useful piece of advice for someone who is working with a similar collection, or just about to begin grappling with this sort of collection?
Okay, so with cellulose acetate, obviously you've got the hazard of the acetic acid. So first thing is to write a risk assessment, do research, that kind of thing, because you're going to need that extra protection for you and your team. So if in the picture that you saw when we were reboxing, we have fume extraction above us, and when I go into the store to get the drawers with the acetate stored in them, I wear a face fitted mask, because obviously we're going in that store, it's all the acetic acid is all built up. So yeah, that would be my main thing is the risk assessment.
Yeah, that's great. That's very good advice. See if there's any more questions in the chat. There's a question for everyone, which, I mean, maybe Jade, you might have a suggestion for this, but I guess anybody else who might have suggestions, you could put it in the chat as well. If there are any recommendations on readings on digitizing acetate negatives. I don't know whether you had any experience with this, Jade, whether you came across this when you were researching for this project as well.
So we've done a little bit of digitization, but obviously we prioritized the reboxing first. When we did some of it, you could still see the image, and you could just slightly see the channeling in the image when it was digitized. But I don't know anything more than that, really. It's more our archives team that was dealing with that.
Okay, no, that's great. That's helpful still. There is another question for Adia in the chat. Will the negatives be accessible to the public?
Yes, well, that is once the legal issues are resolved, that's the goal, to disseminate the material, to maybe find out more prints or themes from Zographos photographic work. The purpose is the goal is to make a book, a photographic book with a biography and his technical issues, and show the photographs to the people, and also make exhibitions worldwide, not just in Greece, but it's a worldwide worthy material to see for everyone. It's really really good. There are some prints in the archives here in Greece scattered, which show the quality of the printing methods, and so yes, the goal is to discover more about Zographos and make him known.
Another question for you, actually, Adia. maybe you mentioned this already. What is the size of the collection?
Well, yes, the negatives are 1,007 for the exact number, 1,007 negatives.
Great, thank you. And I actually have another question for you. Sorry, from you talked about identification of nitrate and acetate polyester. What method were you sort of mainly using for identification of nitrate, or which one did you find the most successful for identification?
Well, apart from the Dodge codes, we used the float test with trichloroethylene. When it sinks, it's nitrate. When it's in the middle, polyester, it's acetate, sorry, and when it goes up, it's polyester. So the floating test, the mapping of the notches, and we categorized according to this. We didn't do floating tests to every negative. We kept track of the tests we did, and the similar negatives were accordingly went to the nitrate or acetate.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's always really useful just to hear like what everyone's doing with these sort of issues, because obviously, problems with negatives occur in so many different collections, and everyone's having to deal with this at some point.
Yes.
So it's good to hear people's different experiences. So there's another question for Jade in the chat. Would you be able to say a bit more about your experience collaborating with the different teams or departments in the museum for this project? How was communicating the importance of this project to those other teams?
Good question. So about the sort of collaborating with different teams, obviously the building that I work in is the same building that the collections team works in. So we're very close anyway. So our communication is usually really good. And then obviously we also worked with our health and safety department, who gave advice on how to work safely with the acetates, and communicating the importance of the project. That's a difficult one at the moment, because at the moment we don't know the significance of the collection because it hasn't been catalogued yet. So hopefully while we're doing this, we can catalogue, and then we can be able to find out the significance, and then we can share the importance. But the main thing about the importance of it now is that the deterioration has increased so much that we need to reduce the risk of it deteriorating completely. So I think that's what's important at the moment, is just getting that stabilized. And I'm hoping, I've been sharing it a lot with my wider work teams on our social page, but I hope to share it with other organizations in the coming year. So.
I don't know if you mentioned this already, Jay, but are you working with sort of volunteers and stuff like that on the project? Did you say that already?
No, so we're not working with volunteers because of the risk of the cellulose acetate. I didn't really want to ask volunteers to do that. So it is just collections and conservation team working on it currently.
Okay. Sorry, Yanis, what were you going to say?
No. I wanted to. I think my question was also about communicating the importance of dealing immediately with these materials and how people from different teams responded, given that sometimes it's not very easily understandable the material aspect. But you more or less answered that. Thanks.
I don't think we have any more questions in the chat, and it's 5-1. So I'm going to hand back over to Yanis for our closing remarks.
Yes, thanks, Stephanie. We have 5 minutes left. I mean, what can I say? It was really, really, really useful. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. the lighting talks of 2025. I know that it was like about a couple of years that we, for technical reasons and sometimes it's difficult to fit extra time during working full time to fit and try to organize events. But I've been very grateful to the team and especially to the new members that we have, Paula, Sophie, Lauren, and Nicole. I'm not forgetting anyone, I hope, and to Stephanie as well, and Jordan, who maybe I hope she's hearing us. She's here with us, and to Marta as well for keeping this group together. So I'm delighted that we managed to revive that, and we had some really amazing talks today, and I think really it could not stress the point of this event, the fact that we all share knowledge and we exchange information and data and connecting. I think we really made some good points that we're definitely gonna be communicating again and exchanging information. So yeah, I mean, I think the purpose of this event, of this type of event, is not be more fulfilled with our talk and the appetite for sharing knowledge today. So thank you everyone for attending. A really big thanks to our speakers, and also very big thanks to our team. I also wanted to mention that we're gonna be doing an annual group meeting, an AGM, in the coming month. So please stay tuned, and we're gonna update you about this in a few weeks, probably after the festive period. And finally, the event will be shared online. I suspect at the Icon website, or maybe via YouTube, but we will let you know once we have that online. And yeah, again, many thanks for joining us, and thanks to the team, thanks to Paula for your amazing job. You're a star, and thanks to everyone. I don't know if Marta, you want anything to add. You don't have to, but thanks for your support. And yeah, I think with that we can close. And please stay in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.